Return, O Virgin Daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's House of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America. Hello, this is Stefania Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director, and we're going to be interviewing somebody that you are very familiar with, having to do with fostering the family, two individuals, in fact, right?
Well, yes, we have Susie Boyle, who is returning to the show, and her foster daughter, Kennedy Rios, is our special guest. Kennedy lives in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. That's part of the greater Detroit area. She was down in Tega Cay, South Carolina, visiting the Boyle family. And so we just took the opportunity to visit with her and learn some of her story. Now, what you're going to hear is the perspective of someone who was in the foster care system. And, you know, we're not emphasizing just the foster care system because Kennedy's story is really big, as in, what are the dynamics involved in her family that caused it to be broken and dysfunctional? What are the things that made a difference in her life? And as you'll hear, the Boyle family was instrumental in helping shift her perspective, her worldview from what she inherited with her biological family to what she sees now and is walking out as a child of the King. So let's go on to Tega Cay, South Carolina, and meet Kennedy Rios. Here we are with another interview segment with Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn. We have a new guest and a returning guest. Our returning guest is Susie Boyle, the Outreach Director of Fostering the Family in, it is Tega Cay, South Carolina. Susie, is that right?
That's right.
And with her, all the way from Dearborn Heights, Michigan, is Kennedy Rios, Susie's foster daughter. Kennedy, welcome to Reunion Roadmap.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Now, when we interviewed Susie, she told us about you. She told us how they met you when her family moved to Detroit, and the special connection that you had with her family and they have had with you, which eventually grew into, well, you became their foster child. But now you're about to graduate high school. You're working on your own, making Detroit style pizza. You have your own hopes and aspirations. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kennedy. What are you doing and what do you hope to be doing in time to come?
Well, I am 26 now, so I am getting my high school diploma a little later than most, but I do get to walk the stage and get my diploma, something I missed out on in high school. And a big part of that drive to finish was Susie and Dennis coming back and visiting just about a year ago and having many heart-to-hearts in a nice, beautiful hot tub over a lake, and helping get that push and strive to finally finish something that I believe was when I first started quitting. I've held down a job since I was 18, working at Detroit Pizza Factory, and I am in a managing position, but I do not believe that will be my career choice. So I am actually in the works of trying to decide what my next step is, but I don't want to make any steps until I know like a efficient, sustainable way for me to make sure I'm where I want to be.
Well, that sounds pretty wise. And having all that experience and that time invested and finally getting to the managerial position, certainly I wouldn't want you to throw that away. But, walking the stage and having that diploma is a tremendous milestone. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah. We're very proud of her.
And rightly so. It occurs to me that even though you are graduating a little bit later than usual, you probably have a greater appreciation for the education.
I actually do. I myself have wondered how we can expect, 18-year-olds to come to like the decisions I'm trying to make at 26 years old. Like there's definitely a lot of great aspects to that, but it's definitely made me appreciate and take in more of all of the education and just what I can do with my future in having that education. Because at 18, I didn't appreciate it as much. It's just something your parents tell you have to do. And fortunately for me, I played sports. So that was my big drive to go to school. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that that was also one of my drives because I went all the way up until the last semester of my senior year. And that was actually when I did quit. And it had to fix that. But I wasn't playing sports the last semester of my senior year. So I did somewhat believe that was a little bit of a driver.
Okay.
That went a lot to age. But being older just definitely gave me a bigger appreciation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that as well. We do put a lot of pressure on people who are 18, 17, 18, 19 to get everything done now. And my question would be, what's the hurry? Yeah, take some time.
You got to go out into the world and you have to actually experience it because our world is only as big as our parents let it be, which is great in many aspects because they protect you from a lot of things. But there are a lot of instances where you're really just thrown into, I didn't know this was a thing, and now this is something you have to navigate. So having a little bit more experience and time under your belt actually out in the world, I think could be great helping in your career choice.
All right. That's a quote-worthy statement. Your world is only as big as your parents allow it to be. All right, I'm going to ponder that for a little. Well, Kennedy, what Susie shared, as I recall, is when her family moved to Detroit and you were living next door, I believe you were 9 years old at the time. Was that right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's pick up your story there. What drew you to the Boyle family and in particular to your good friend, Susie's son?
So to be honest with you, I actually just had this conversation with Shane last night and I was like, I actually don't know the particular reason that I became friends with a kindergartner at 9 years old because we had 4 years isn't a huge difference now at 26 and 24. But at that point in time, especially with the things I had been through in my life, maybe that could be it. It was the attraction to him, him actually being a kid and me seeing that I might actually be able to be a kid around him and with his parents. So that really drew me towards that. And also going into foster care, or I wasn't fully into foster care at that moment. I was living with my godfather and his fiance or wife at the time. But I think it was just, I realized that I was in a household with people that weren't completely prepared to be parents. And I left a household of seven kids going to only just being me and one other sibling. So when I seen Shane and Avery, I think I thought that as an opportunity to extend my family because I have always been the type of person where my family is a lot of people I choose versus blood. Mm. And it helps that, Susie and Dennis were such great people because that really just pulled me towards them because not to speak down on my aunt and uncle at the time, but they were definitely not in a mental position to be taking care of me because they would be Shane's age right now. He just graduated college. So
22.
Yeah. So now at 26, I can view that, okay, at 22 years old, it probably was super hard to get a 9-year-old. And I think she was a 5. She was 3, sorry. And then my other sister was 3. So we were on both ends of the spectrum of kids, going from nothing to 2.
Wow. Yeah, you're right there. And you have just made another quotable quote of family is who you choose rather than blood. That sounds like God.
Mm-hmm. More and more, I do learn still today more and more that a lot of the things and ways that I felt have all came from God, without even realizing it. It took certain things for me to realize that those things don't just happen.
True. Yes, they don't just happen. But there is this conscious choice, and you have said it, and we all live it out, whether we're aware of it or not. Who do we allow close to us? And to go to the theological point again, God is the one who brings us into his family. Of course, we have our own choices, whether we want to do that through the ministry, the atoning work of his son, Jesus, but he's the one who adopts us. And it sounds like even at 9 years old, you were becoming aware of this and living it out.
Yeah. I had a bigger appreciation for sure than like only like the people in front of me. Like I was able to see past just blood.
Mm-hmm. When people think of foster care, if they think of foster care at all, images probably come to mind of neglect and abuse, which are there, broken families, single moms,
Broken kids.
broken kids. Yes.
Biggest thing too, because I've heard it, people without even realizing the past that I have going, oh, well, that girl's just a foster daughter, that's not actually their blood. And you just hear that and you're like, that kid doesn't really have any other choice than to be in that family. So it just, sometimes it stinks to hear that whole mentality behind like, oh, they're just broken kids. Like they are broken kids, but it's not their fault. And they're just out trying to do the same thing that every other person is in the world, trying to find their place. And most of us aren't lucky enough to know and be able to look to God to be able to help us find that place. But I got lucky to move in next to people that even showed me a walk, because before that, there was no sense of any spirituality in my life at all. Even though I understand I was 9 years old and I was young, but I had been through confirmation, catechism, and all of that, but none of that resonated with me. But I think a lot of it had to do with just the way it was coming.
What was the dynamic in your biological family?
So for like religion wise, or just like?
Well, how did the family operate? What were the values? And we might say, what were the strengths? What were the dysfunctions? And why was it that you and your 7 siblings couldn't remain in the same house?
To be honest with you, looking back, I don't really believe that my parents had any like steadfast beliefs. I believe that the only reason we even went to confirmation communion was somewhat for the look of it, because we went to it, but we didn't practice it at home. My parents didn't like talk about a relationship or anything. Honestly, I was in an abusive household. My dad, sperm donor, sorry, I don't really call him dad, but he was very abusive to my mom, and he was also very abusive to us physically, but unfortunately, he also took that abuse to another level with my oldest sister and did a lot of inappropriate things to her that led to all of us having to part ways. So, I mean, it was definitely a hard time, but there was a whole lot of question around it, but there was really no beliefs or anything for me to really like hold on to, especially in those moments.
Yeah.
I think it's survival. I feel like a lot of times when you're in a family and you have so much responsibility, which they did have. I mean, they were young and they had a lot of kids, that they're surviving.
Yeah.
So they're not having a chance to thrive and to figure out what they want for their family. They're just trying to exist and the best that they can at the time.
Yeah, my mom got pregnant at 15 and started having kids at 16. And all of us are 2 years apart without being planned. So there's a lot of kids and a lot of trauma and things around that really started my family. And it really didn't help, obviously, that they didn't have any spirituality within themselves. So there was a lot of negativity in my household.
And we could pull this string forever, because I could all ask, what model did your parents have to help show them?
My grandma on my mom's side, like she is definitely more of a consistent human being, but she's not really like going to help my mom with her walk or to find any spirituality or to find something bigger than yourself to make the world make sense sometimes, or to be able to give it away, because things can be way too much for us to bear, obviously, because we're not intended to bear it alone. But when you don't have that relationship, you don't realize that everything just feels overwhelming. And in my dad's family, it actually, the neglect or the abuse that he did to my sibling was also done to him, was also done to his uncle. So it was definitely like a whole generational curse type thing. We broke it now, obviously, because that has not continued within my immediate family, thankfully. But he is out in this world.
Yeah.
He's out in the world. He's got out like 4 or 5 years ago.
And your story, what I am finding, is far more common than anyone is comfortable admitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a thing we can just gloss over and turn a blind eye to, because everyone we encounter on a daily basis is in some way broken. It just happens to be, well, in your case, in your family's case, the brokenness seems to be more visible.
Yeah.
But then comes the question, how does that get fixed? So what, and obviously the Boyle family was instrumental in this, but Kennedy, what is it that started you on that road to wholeness?
I think I always wanted it. I am one of 7 kids and I fall as the 3rd oldest. So I'm not exactly a middle kid, but I'm almost a middle kid. So I've always been kind of searching for something a little bit bigger than myself. Like I've always had this feeling, but I just never understood what it was because I grew up in a home where it was hard to even make sure you had food to eat. So, but part of me still inside just had this like little light, like there's gotta be something else that's outside that can actually like change my world, or I can help change my world or change someone else's world. And I got lucky literally to move in next door to people that were put in place to do that exact thing that I had been praying for without realizing I was praying for it.
And that again is such a God thing. And that's even in the scriptures because the Holy Spirit prays for us and asking for things we don't even know how to ask for.
Yeah.
So as a child, you didn't know, but there was that.
Yeah, he was already working on it. But
Yeah.
I just had to kind of let it be.
But of course, nothing happens overnight. No.
I
So
had to be strong and go through a lot of the trials and tribulations to be able to get there, but it made me more appreciative when I did.
yeah. And Susie, you've shared in our previous visit of the roundabout way that Kennedy came into your home as a foster child. Could you refresh us on the details?
Well, she was the neighbor next door that played with the 5-year-old, which seemed to, like she said, to be an interesting match in the first place. But they actually were super compatible. Both of them loved sports, and so they were very compatible kids. They did a lot of playing, which actually was definitely an amazing thing for Kennedy because
I didn't do that.
She didn't know how to play.
No.
At times she didn't know how to play. I remember her being in our house and she was sitting with the adults while the kids were, I think one day they were sliding across our wood floors. And Kenny was sitting with us and we were like, what are you doing? Why don't you go slide on the floor too? But like she had to almost be reminded how to be a kid because, as she said, she was one of the older kids. So she spent a lot of time taking care of her siblings, even as a young 9-year-old. So she was the neighbor next door. And then she wasn't the neighbor next door because they moved from Michigan to Ohio. And then when they decided that they couldn't keep them anymore and they put them back in Detroit, put them in Detroit foster care, then she was in foster care. So then we were called to, help her because we knew that foster care wasn't easy, but we also knew that Detroit foster care is probably a little bit rough. And
specifically Highland Park was the one area that I was in, and
it was rough.
It is not a nice area to go to today. So I can only imagine at 9 years old, 10 years old, how that was. I have my memories, but obviously I don't know. I don't have all of the exact feelings from then.
Thankfully, probably.
Yeah, because it wasn't great.
But, they told me that when we went and got a foster care license that they weren't going to move her anyway, which, at this time, today I know a lot more about foster care than I knew then. So I innocently went in, and even innocently, I was like, well, you'll move her because she needs to be with her people and we're her people. But they said that they weren't gonna, she needed, she would stay where she is because, they had a home for her. But we pretty much said that that's okay, you'll move her. Because, and to me, that makes me smile more now because now I know, like when you move kids in foster care, you try and find their people. That's what you do. You find their, you find their biological families, kinship care, neighbors, teachers, coaches. You find people who care about them first before you put them with strangers. That's what you need to do. And they didn't even talk about that at all. Like we understand that we were just the neighbor of the aunt and uncle, but we were her people at the time. We were the people that she spent a lot of time with. So
more time than I spent with my aunt and uncle, and I lived with them.
But
I pretty much spent most of my time at their house if I was awake.
And foster care didn't even acknowledge that to us when we were doing it like that. Oh, that it would make sense for you to get her because this is where she's been spending the past year of her life. But we didn't, that didn't stop us and we didn't give up. We just said, well, you will. And thankfully, God handled the rest of it. And she got taken out of this abusive foster home that she was in and moved in with us, which we were very grateful for, and so was she.
I'm grateful that it was really only one. Like, granted, living with my aunt and uncle wasn't great, and there's a lot of trauma there, but not comparing to it. I mean, we've kind of went a little back and forth on like whether or not it was a group home or not, because it may not have, like, I'm not sure what the word is, but it may not have ran as a group home, but it was set up as a group home. Like, she honestly should not have been a foster parent in any way, shape, or form. There was at least 12 of us there, including me and my little sister. That's a lot of people to have in one household with only one parent.
Oh my, yes. My grandparents had 7 children, and that was a lot for them.
Yeah. And all of these people were all kids that had been through so much trauma and so much pain and didn't know anything other than chaos. So, and at 9-10 years old, I didn't realize that. I can actually realize that now. But then I was just hurt because of all the, abuse and things I had to go through. But those people were hurting just as much as I was and didn't know how to deal with it.
From Will Spires, here is One More Breath. Will's music and many other resources are available at willspires.com.
Just stop a minute with your voodoo thinking. Do you believe this is the way to real heaven? I just wanna give you an invitation to pick you up from a Monday morning. One more, give me one more breath. One more, give me one more breath. One more, give me one more breath. Thank you for giving me. Jesus didn't rise so you could feel alone. Jesus didn't conquer death so you could feel like a cold, empty tomb. This world isn't easy, but if you got Jesus living in you, you'll find joy even in your blues. One more day. One more. One more. One more. One more. One more. One more. More.
Shalom and welcome to today's Midrash portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is Barry Phillips in Gloucester, Virginia, along with my esteemed co-host David Jones from Brandon, Florida. How are you today, sir?
Doing well, brother. Doing pretty good.
I'm so glad to hear that. David got a thought. Many, many years ago, when probably in my early 20s, I heard a story about a pastor we had. This had been, oh my goodness, late 60s, early 70s or so. And he was an esteemed man of Elohim. He was well loved and well respected. And he had a saying that someone who prayed with him told me. I had no idea, but he said, the man would say, I've got so much work to do today, it's going to take 3 or 4 hours of prayer to get it all done. So for this man, he realized that the more you needed to get done, the more you needed to pray. I found that interesting because most of us will look at a very busy schedule and say a hurried prayer at the beginning. Father, be with me, help me get this all done. Amen. I got to go. This seasoned veteran, however, realized in order to have the right mindset, the right energy level, the right focus of how to start and finish, I need to be in the presence of the Father and pray it through first. Now, you can balance that with those who pray but never do anything. Well, let's just pray about it. That can become an excuse to, well, I'm going to talk to the ceiling, but I'm never really going to go into the actual work because maybe I'm lazy, or maybe I'm afraid, or maybe I'm reluctant, or whatever the case may be. But it comes down to this, in my opinion. Is it possible that we reach certain levels of accomplishment or ability, and then we stagnate and get stuck because we're not upping our prayer effort to go any further? Or are we limited by our levels of prayer?
You know, your illustration makes me think of another one, and I'm going to do it really quick and I'll probably butcher it, but 2 men were challenged to a contest of chopping down trees. And at the time, it's like, okay, you have this amount of time, go. So the one goes and starts chopping the tree, and the other one goes back and sharpens his axe first. Prayer is sharpening the axe. That's getting ready for the work. It's not that we're not doing the work, but it's putting the proper focus on it. You know, let Yahweh go with us. Let him go before us like he promised he would. Let us be acknowledged. You know, let us acknowledge that he is there with us and we're following him in all of our endeavors. Prayer is vital. You know, we were speaking a little earlier before we hit the button, you know, record, about the book Bamidbar and what life is like in there. And I'm reminded Midbar is the wilderness, but Davar is also speech. And so Bamidbar can be loosely translated in that which is in or from our speech. Or if you want to put it this way, bet symbolizing a house, you have the house that's made from speech, or you live in what you build. You live what you say. And
Very
because
good.
This is where your mind and your heart is focused. You know, out of the mouth, the heart speaks, Yeshua said, right? So you live in what you say. And we're told in scripture, like when Israel went into the land, he said, when you go into the land, I want you to go to Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal and stand there in Shechem and put half the tribes toward one mountain, half towards the other, and proclaim the blessings of the cursings of the covenant and put the covenant in place before you. I think we need to do that. And prayer does that. It's putting the covenant in place before us. It's our acknowledgement of what Yahweh wants to do in our life and on our behalf, and keeping us focused on the path that he has us. It kind of The Torah is that light to our path, but I think prayer's that fire that goes in it.
So can we say then that prayer is the bridge that connects we ourselves to the Torah's agenda? In other words, the word of Yah has been decreed and declared, and we see the kingdom, we see its coming, we see its Messiah, we see its, the Torah, in my wording, the Torah is the constitution of the coming kingdom.
I think it can be said that way, yes.
And so prayer is the bridge then that I build between myself and that agenda. It's what is the connecting means. Without some kind of intercession, prayer, connectivity, communication with the author of the Torah, disconnected. And we're talking perhaps in glowing terms about prayer and intercessions as if it is just very easy to assume your prayer position seated on your face, standing in the corner, however you do. And we envision ourselves like Moshe. We begin a sentence and heaven opens up and a thin cloud separates us from the very face of the Creator. And we hear audibly his voice back and forth in the conversation. That's not my prayer experience. Sometimes prayer is almost like work. Sometimes prayer is like me talking and hearing nothing in return. Other times it's, oh, Father, I don't even know how to put into words where I'm at and what I'm experiencing. And I just, sit still before him sometimes. Dr. Sakina, that we both know and love, he's taught us that fellowship can be prayer, that playing music to him can be our prayer. He says, I want to pray over you. And he's told us this on several occasions in a gathering. And he said, I'd like to pray over you. And then he pick up his native flute and play a song over us, offering that as a prayer of intercession for us. That's outside of our wheelhouse. We don't really know what to do with that cultural understanding of prayer, but it works. I'm just thinking we may, as the body of Messiah, have reached a place of our growth pattern, our stabilities, the raising up of leadership, the gifting of new people to step into roles of, teaching or worshiping or whatever the calling may be. And we've not been praying for that. I'll throw this out there and then I'll hush and let you go at it. I think that you and I are living on and operating on the wave of effect that previous generations prayed for. Our grandparents, maybe generations prior to our parents, prayed for revival, prayed for renewal, prayed for this country, prayed for the kingdom. And their prayers and intercessions built up a momentum and a wave that has lasted unto our day. They didn't live to see it, but we are benefiting from it. The question then would be, how big a wave are we praying to create for our sons, daughters, grandchildren, or will they be without a wave at all?
There are so many different aspects of prayer that it's hard to really touch on all of them, but prayer is personal, it's private, it's you and the Father, but it's also corporate, and we can't forget, or we have to recall that prayer is, yes, it's that relationship with Yahweh, it's that communication with him, it's that, but we also have to direct that as far as praying for those here, praying for those in our lives, praying for those who we don't know, who Yahweh's looking out for. We need to pray for these things, and I think as we're praying for one another, it's putting in our mind what Yahweh wants to do in our midst here on earth, let the kingdom be here on earth as it is in heaven, right? So if we're praying for one another, we will be mindful of these things. And in turn, we're going to try to do things, not just for things for right now. We're trying to do things for the next generation, for the future generations, for those to come, for those that follow. Like you plant a tree, you don't plant a tree for you plant it for those that come after you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're looking, prayer is looking to do that. We're planting trees. We're trying to help things to grow and cultivate an atmosphere where it's not just about what I'm planting right now, but I want what comes after this to also grow. Because producing, like fruit, producing after its like kind. It's not one generation you're looking at. It's continual. When you plant something, you don't want it to grow one thing and be the end of it. You want it to grow, and you want it to continue. And so I think if we're keeping that prayer focused to the Father and praying for one another, don't forget that corporate prayer. As a people, we come before Him. As a people, we are all at the mountain, camped as one person. And as a people, we come before Him as one. And prayer will help us in that, because we see, like Yeshua prayed in John 17, Father, I pray that they are one like you and I are one.
Yes. You're picking up on your tree example there. Planting the tree, isn't it 3 years? The first 3 years of fruit are not for us.
Right.
So,
right. And then the fourth year is set apart, and then the fifth year is for every use.
So prayer may take a longer period of time to produce the fruit that is available to us than we may be comfortable with. You can't give up in the prayer agenda of that. Well, the Father he must be saying no. No, he may be still saying, seek me further on this. Sometimes I think, David, we start into an area of prayer, and maybe you've done this, I certainly have. You kind of start investigating the Father through prayer. You're feeling after Him. You're asking questions. You're searching. I'm Father, you're putting this on my spirit and my heart, and I'm seeking you in it. But I'm not real sure where this needs to go. How many times have I heard Him speak to me and say something to me, and I pick up and run off with it, and only to come back and realize I didn't hear you right, or I misunderstood what you were referencing here, because all of my efforts have turned up sour. Going back to Him, oh, that's what you meant? Yeah. So,
yeah.
There is this need sometimes to investigate Him further. He's not saying no. It's as if He is standing before us with His hands motioning. Keep going, keep going, keep asking. I'm still revealing the whole enchilada of this to you. You got it. You got to get a bigger picture, and you can't get that sometimes. With B'nai Yosef, we thought at various points, well, we got this all figured out, only to realize, no, there's a bigger, broader, more in-depth picture of what's going on than what we have considered to this point. So, what is bigger and broader than anything else right now is the time clock.
Yeah, we're getting ready to crunch here in a minute, but I'm reminded here in what you're saying, and just to kind of throw it out quickly, when we pray, we're not trying to get Yahweh to do something for us. Matter of fact, sometimes we just want that connection with Him. It's like, okay, when we connect with Him, okay, I'm the one here who needs to change. I'm the one here who needs to hear His voice. So what are you saying, Father? And I think that's a lot of times what we need to do. We often go before and we pray, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this other thing, and I'd really like a piece of cheesecake, because Shavuot, cheesecake, right? And Yahweh could be saying, eat your broccoli first.
Yeah.
Well, that I know, they're terrible. Well, but we're out of time though, so we're kind of here at the end. Barry, you want to take us out?
Sure. We'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments, input, ideas for future midrashes. You can reach us at B'naiYosefNA.com, is reunion roadmap at B'naiYosefNA.com. We'd love to hear from you. So until next week, David, shalom, brother.
Shalom.
Here's Teshuvah with Home from their album Return, available at teshuvahmusic.com.
The world tries to steal your heart. It captivates you from the start, but always it falls apart. Oh, try not to fall apart. Everything that fades away can cause you to go astray. Hold on to me and know that one thing will always stay. All the ashes turn to dust, and everything you feel is lost. But everything is not destroyed. My love will fill up the void. Soon there will be a home. The fire will leave alone. I will be waiting there. I want to be your home. I want to be your home. I want to be your home. I want to be your home.
That was Teshuvah with Home. Earlier, we heard Will Spires with his latest song, One More Breath. And then we had Barry and David with their midrash, which they have titled Pray. Stefania, there are some points made in this midrash that got our attention. Tell us what you are taking away from that midrash.
There's one particular statement that David Jones made that really, really struck me. And he said that they came to the mountain to pray as one people, as one voice, as and to me, it's like, wow. I mean, is that what they're saying when about putting so many thousands to flight? That if you have a whole nation as one, what mighty works could they do for the Father? No, I don't know.
That's a good point. I think it, and you and I both have been involved in corporate prayer where that kind of unity was present. Often we have it on our Sunday B'nai Yosef North America prayer calls, where we have our core group of intercessors. And I've experienced it in other venues, praying with other ministries and networks. There's something that happens when you're doing this regularly with the same people and you are connected with them in a very real family kind of way. And mishpacha is a good word, the Hebrew word for family. I have learned that through intercessory prayer. Now, there's another thing that our elders said that impacts directly or connects directly with Kennedy's story. As they were saying, and I believe it was Barry made this point, we are the beneficiaries of what previous generations have prayed in.
Yes.
I know that is the fact in my life, from my grandparents praying, my parents praying, especially my grandmother, who was a praying woman for her 7 children and 21 grandchildren. So the question is, what are we leaving for those generations that will follow us? How are we praying in the realities that they will face? And where this intersects Kennedy's story is, I'm not sure that her parents or her grandparents had such prayer preparation from the previous generations. Is that why dysfunction happens and families and individuals are broken and they have to face one obstacle after another, none of which they are equipped to handle? Is that what happens when the generational cycles are broken? And instead of looking out for and interceding for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, we begin to look inward and try to make things centered on us for whatever reason. So who's looking out for them?
Yes.
And the outlook ceases to be upward and the trajectory turns to downward, and it becomes a vicious downward spiral.
Yes.
That's what we heard in Kennedy's story. And it takes, I believe, divine intervention to break that cycle and turn it around and bring it upward again.
Yes.
And this is why I'm so uplifted and encouraged to hear stories like Kennedy has brought, and to be in association with people like Susie and Dennis Boyle, who are committed to making things better for the next generations. One other thing I'll say about that before we move on. Barry and David mentioned Dr. Sukina explaining to us the different elements of prayer.
Oh, yes.
And how he prays with a flute and how a dance can be a prayer. I do believe that's right.
Yeah. In fact, I heard a recent statement that the moving with the indigenous people, moving of your feet is the way that they would pray, which is very similar to the davening that Jews would pray at the wall. There's a movement there. Both have a particular type of movement.
Yes. And what I was thinking specifically about was use of the drum.
Yes.
And this goes back to unity. Yeah. When there are many people sitting around one drum and they are all beating simultaneously, there comes a moment when they are all perfectly in sync. And it's like the atmosphere changes and there is one heartbeat. And that goes back to what point you made earlier about being at the mountain praying as one person.
Yes.
Well, that is going to be all we can cover in this edition of Reunion Roadmap. And if you do appreciate what you're hearing here, then please go to our website, BneiYosefNA.com, BneiYosefNA.com. We do have a donate button if you are moved to partner with us. We also have many resources on that webpage if you would check it out and let us know what you think. So on behalf of Stefania Pappas, Barry Phillips, and David Jones, this is Al McCarn. Thank you for joining us. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America.